G'day guys and welcome back. It's been a bit of a minute since we've been here in my little video studio in the back of my house, and today we're talking about the Daiwa Double Clutch for trout. That was a hit? Yep. So with the summer bass fishing having come to a close and the winter mulloway fishing not being anywhere near as good as last year, this year I've decided to go and chase some trout some more. Now, the last couple of years, you probably noticed that I've been fishing Pike's Reservoir mostly for trout, as well as the northeast. However, this year I've decided to fish Werribee Reservoir out past Geelong a little bit more for trout. So you probably noticed in my last couple of videos that I've mostly been using Tassie Devils for chasing the trout. However, before that, my go-to lure was the Daiwa Double Clutch. Now, the Daiwa Double Clutch has been my favourite hard body lure for a while now. It is a jerkbait style lure, and I've used it for everything from bass to estuary perch, flathead, snook. It really is a very versatile lure that will catch a lot of fish in both the fresh and the salt water. Now, the reason why it's so versatile is it can be fished in a whole bunch of different ways. You can use it as a jerkbait, you can fish it like a crankbait, you can troll it, you can twitch it, stop, start. Just about any retrieve that you do with the double clutch, it will pretty much react exactly how you want. And being a suspending lure, it sort of hovers in the water column. It doesn't really want to float up or sink down. So any kind of retrieve that you do, it's going to react really, really well to it. Now, as far as the sizes go, there's a whole bunch of different sizes that the double clutch comes in. There's the little one, which is only 48 millimeters. There's the 60 millimeter, the 75 millimeter, the 95 millimeter, all the way up to the big 115, which is great for things like barra up north. Could use it for big flathead, even snapper, and also mulloway would probably take the 115 millimeter double clutch. Now, the thing to remember as well is as you go bigger in size, the lure will actually start diving down deeper. Now, you can go on the Daiwa website to check what the depths are, and you'll also want to keep in mind that in salt water, because of the extra buoyancy of salt water, it probably won't quite go as deep as it does in the fresh water. But when you're choosing which one to use, you do need to consider the depth of the water that you're fishing in and what part of the water column you actually want to be targeting as well. Now, recently, the double clutch has come out with a shallow running version as well, which would be great in the really shallow water, things like your sand flats chasing flathead, also real shallow trout streams. The shallow running double clutch is probably going to be excellent for those, but when it comes to trout fishing, I do prefer the standard double clutch more. So there's an absolute plethora of colours in the double clutch range that you can choose from, and to be honest, they will all catch trout at one point or another. However, there are a few go-tos within the range that I like. So obviously your trout colours, since trout are a cannibalistic fish, so rainbow trout, brown trout, and also golden trout, they're all a few favourites of mine. I also like the Ghost Wakasagi and the Laser Wakasagi colours as well. So if you're fishing in a place where you know there are galaxid minnows in there, those are going to be fantastic lures to use as well. And one other that I really like is the laser red. Sometimes, especially around the spawning time, trout sometimes they'll ignore a lot of lures, but the laser red does seem to annoy them a little bit, and it can coax a bite out of them when they're being a little bit more finicky. So as far as choosing size, it really depends on the depth of the water that you're fishing. Now, if I'm fishing in a real shallow trout stream with fast flowing water, I might use something like the 48 or the 60. I will use a 60 sort of early in the day when the fish are a little bit higher up in the water column, and as the sun comes up a bit, I might go to the 75 when they start to go a little bit deeper into the water column. So the size that you use is a little bit dependent on sort of the conditions that you're fishing. Now, if you were in very deep water, or if you're out in the boat, say trolling, I'd probably recommend even going up to something like the 95. I wouldn't go to the 115, it's probably a little bit big, but 95 is probably about as big as you're going to want to go with the double clutch for trout. Alright, so what we're going to do now is we're going to clip on one of these 60mm double clutches. We're going to drive out to Werribee Reservoir. We're going to flick it around and see if we can find a trout. So let's see what happens.
One eternity later.
Alright guys, so we've come down to Werribee and we're using the 60mm double clutch, and we've picked the rainbow trout colour here. Obviously there is trout in here, so I thought we'd go with something a little bit natural here to try and tempt them. Now sometimes if they aren't biting on something natural, you might need to go something like the laser red to really annoy the hell out of them into biting. So what we'll do here is we'll just cast it out. Now when you retrieve them, the good thing about them is you don't have to just go jerk, jerk like that as they recommend. Now you can obviously. Now you can point the rod down and go jerk, jerk like that, and that'll keep the lure a bit deeper. Now if you're in shallower water, just jerk up like that, and it'll keep it from running into the bottom and keep it just above the rocks and the weeds. Now, what you can do is you can work them like a crankbait, just a straight retrieve like that. Or you can go twitch, twitch and stop. Twitch, twitch, stop. All of those techniques work really, really well with the double clutch. It's a super versatile lure. And it's one of the reasons that I love it so much. And I've used it, as I mentioned, for everything from trout to brim. I've used it for flathead as well. Bass, all fish will eat a double clutch. They're kind of like a Z-Man Slim Swims in that regard. Just about everything will eat them at some point. So what we're doing here is we're just mixing up the retrievers a little bit. Just flick, 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 then down, flick, flick. Just changing it up just to see what we might get a hit on. Now the other thing about them that's really great is they have that sliding oscillating weight system, or whatever it's called. It's basically, if you look at it, I'm pretty sure that's where it gets the name double clutch, because it looks kind of like the double clutch mechanism in supercars. And that weight will slide its way to the back of the lure when you cast to give it extra inertia for a long cast. Things like your Opalas don't have that. And I find that the 60mm double clutch will actually cast further than something like a CD7 just because of that little oscillating weight in there. It's a really smart design that Daiwa's put in there. Now, when it comes to the rods and reels, I'm not a Daiwa fan, but when it comes to lures, they're great. So let's just keep casting around here and we'll see if we can find a trout. Oh, there we go. There's a fish. Oh, finally. God. Oh, big jump. Big jump. Nice brownie. Nice brown trout. All right, let's bring him in. Oh, yeah, that's a good brownie. Let's get another look at him. That's a beautiful condition brown, that. Not the biggest brown trout I've caught here, but I'll take it all the same. So yeah, that rainbow trout double clutch there in 60mm has done the job there on that nice brown trout. And yeah, I highly recommend these for anyone looking for trout lures other than the usual spoons and Tassie Devils. They do work really, really well. Well, there we go, guys. As I mentioned, the double clutch is a fantastic lure, very, very versatile, and highly recommend it for trout. Hope you learned a few things here. If you got any questions, leave them in the comments below. Give us a like, and flick a subscribe as well if you enjoyed this one, and I'll see you on the next one. Cheers.